East Texas Congressman Nathaniel Moran was in Jefferson today visiting the Master Woodcraft Cabinetry facility.
He made the visit to see the work being done and learn about the problems these workers face. And as KLTV7's Christine Guevara reports, he hopes to take what he learned back to the Capitol.
East Texas Congressman Nathaniel Moran is back in East Texas after serving his first term in Washington, D.C. He toured the Master Woodcraft Cabinetry factory and met with some of the employees.
Today was a great opportunity for me to see the operations here in Jefferson, Texas, to understand more about the hurdles that they're facing and supply chain issues and trade issues, and to understand how I can better serve them in Congress.
There are about 100 employees at the plant. They produce about 1,000 cabinets a day. One of the managers of the Jefferson location, John Michael McConnell, says having Congressman Moran come by was important to the business.
A lot of people, especially in rural areas of East Texas, sometimes kind of feel forgotten. So it means a lot, an incredible amount to our team members here to be able to have someone of his level come and see what they do. Because a lot of people, they were proud to show what they were doing today.
Moran says he was inspired to see their hard work and wants to continue fostering East Texas ingenuity.
But, you know, the federal government is just infamous for getting in the way of business and industry, and we need to get out of the way. We need to reduce the regulatory burden on businesses, and we need to make sure that businesses can thrive.
And as business continues to boom in Jefferson, McConnell sees opportunities for economic development.
We would like, obviously, to continue to have growth here as well, make sure more infrastructure in the community. We just would like to have, you know, maybe down the road more housing for our team members here, maybe where it's easier to get people to come to this community to live and grow here with us as well.
Christine Guevara, KLTV 7 News.
Congressman Moran also took a tour of the Master Woodcraft facility in Marshall.